Hello, everybody, and welcome to the panel room at ConTinual, the con that never ends. Tonight, we have a wonderful special panel for the month of May of mystery writers. So we are talking whodunit tonight with a fabulous panel, and I will let each of them introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Ellen.
Okay, I guess alphabetically, right? I'm Ellen Byerrum. I write the crime of fashion mysteries. There are currently 11 mysteries in my series, but right at the moment I am working on a prequel to the series that is set during the war, 1943, in Washington and Alexandria, Virginia, which is the story of my main heroine, who is Lacey Smithsonian in present day, and her ancestor, Mimi Smith, who went to Washington to work for the war effort obviously during the war. And one thing I did, I think perhaps our mistakes turn out to be, I hope, one of our better ideas, because I did not give her a great job. I did not give her a job at a spy agency, but I made her work at the Office of Price Administration, which sets prices on goods and ration tickets and investigates the black market. And I thought, of all the stupid areas, nobody knows about OPA, which is a good thing. But also there were investigators and female operatives there. So it's hopefully leading into a more interesting book than just having her work for OSS and be a super spy and all that. Because she works on the home front and she's investigating the murder of a young prostitute in Alexandria. So
cool. Nicole, what about you?
And so I'm Nicole Givens Kurtz, and I write science fiction mysteries, a la like think Blade Runner plus Shaft with a Black female lead in my Sybil Lewis series. I also write futuristic pulp, futuristic noir in my Fawn and Briscoe series. Think post-apocalyptic DC with two regulators, aka cops, who are solving crimes. It's very cyberpunkish and it's like high tech and low life. And I also write a fantasy series called The Kingdom of Avis Mysteries that takes place in a kingdom far, far away, where the investigator is Prentice, who's a hawk who can see the unseen. And she is called out to different eggs, which are cities in the kingdom, to investigate supernatural crime.
Oh, how cool.
yeah, that's wild.
Mark, what about you?
Well, I've written 20 mysteries. Included in that are 2 series. Both of those are set in my native Western North Carolina. They're contemporary mysteries. I've also done some young adult mysteries. And Nicole, I've also tried one science fiction mystery that was fun. My main series is the Sam Blackman series. It's set in Asheville, North Carolina. It features a Iraqi war veteran who lost a leg in the conflict. And he's partnered up with his love, Nikayla Robertson. They're an interracial couple, and they look at crimes in the present that were the consequences of crimes in the past. So it gives me a chance to go into the history of the region, explore something, and then turn it into a present day crime.
How cool. Faith?
Well, I have been in print since 1990. I've got 40-something books and compilations to my name. As Gwen Hunter, I wrote police procedurals, women in jeopardy, thrillers, medical mystery series, standalones, and then as Faith Hunter, I've written urban fantasy with a strong mystery element, and that would be the Jane Yellow Rock series. I have a paranormal police procedural series called the Soulwood series, which has a young, not quite human character named Nell Ingram. And I have just finished the second in the Junkyard Cat series, which is sci-fi. And so I'm doing I'm spreading my wings a little bit.
And Alexia?
I'm Alexia Gordon. I write the Gethsemane Brown mysteries. They're a paranormal cozy series set in Ireland. with an African-American female classical musician as the amateur sleuth and a ghost as her sidekick. I also wrote my first short story, which will be appearing in the Bauscher anthology coming later this year. And I'm actually back in graduate school right now. I'm sort of taking a hiatus from writing fiction and writing lots of nonfiction papers, including a presentation for tomorrow on George Washington.
Cool. Well, it's all grist for the mill when you get back to writing, right? Well, since we've talked a little bit about history and all the things that you all write, mysteries as a genre have been around for literally ever. What do you think is so appealing about the solving of the crime? I mean, mysteries, unlike suspense or thrillers, tend to be more about, okay, we've got a body on the floor, who done it, right? So, let's start with you, Faith. What do you think is so appealing about solving the mystery, and why do readers like it so much?
I think a lot of it is because there's so many things in our own lives we can't solve. In real life, there's all these problems, and there's the late unpleasantness, shall we say, and there are contretemps at work, and there are family issues, and there's things that we can't actually lay out in a linear fashion and say, here's the answer, this fixes it. But in mystery, no matter how bad it starts out, there's always some sort of a wonderful resolution. And for me, writing them, that's what gives me the greatest joy, is the resolution on paper that I can't get in real life.
Somebody gets their comeuppance, right? Nicole, do you have a different take?
I do not. Actually, I am a big mystery fan, so I write mysteries, but I enjoy, as a reader, I love watching. I like the twists and the turns, right? The things I don't see coming, and I like to play the game of I can spot who it is, and then I can't. Right? I'm wrong, and so for me, it's the game. It's the cat and mouse game. It's the reading, the twists, the turns. It's the actual curiosity of who did do it. But on its face, I enjoy looking at how humanity works, in the sense that it's a crime of passion, it's a plot, it's the same basic 7 sins that drives humans to do awful things to each other. And so part of the intrigue or interest for me is watching that unfold, and the satisfying part when they get caught, Faith. So, or they get their comeuppance for being naughty, or for indulging that sin. And so I just like reading them for all those reasons: cat and mouse, twists and turns, a study in humanity and our behavior, and then the comeuppance at the end.
What about you, Mark?
I would agree with everything that's said so far. Particularly, I think the type of mystery may bring in a different type of reader. There's some mystery writers that they want the more Jeopardy, thrill, roller coaster sort of mystery, and others like a cozy that they can have with a cup of tea. So I think it depends upon what kind of mystery we're talking about, what appeals to them. One aspect of mysteries, and I heard this from Margaret Maron, if you all know Margaret, who unfortunately passed away a couple months ago. She said there's no topic that you cannot handle in a mystery. And so that gives the opportunity, I think, for readers to learn things about topical agendas and things that are going on while they're enjoying a mystery and matching wits with the detective or matching wits against the villain. And so that it gives you a perfect way to kind of bring people's horizons, make them wider while they're enjoying a mystery that they're learning something in spite of themselves, maybe I would say.
I always learn something. It's a dipping my toe into something that a realm that someone else knows something about and I don't. Alexia, what about you? What is your take on it?
It's so much of what folks have said. I know, Mark mentioned that different kinds of mysteries bring in different kinds of readers. With cozies in particular, a lot of people read it because they like the relationships between the characters. Cozies tend to have the same characters in each book, and they tend to be series, some of them very long. And I know a lot of fans come to think of the characters as personal friends, and they're interested in their lives as well as the crime itself, sometimes even more than the crime itself. I'm actually a little old school, I guess, with a more traditional mystery. I like the puzzle part. I like to figure things out, so I like to read about people figuring things out. I also like the idea that order is brought to chaos. Gives me a sense of justice. You know, in real life, people tend to get away with stuff they don't in mysteries. And
Yeah.
I'll admit that some of them also sort of appeal to my revenge fantasies. Things that maybe you couldn't get away with in real life. It's like people mentioned come up, and it's like you like to see the bad guy get what's coming to him. So
Yeah, you do. Ellen, yours sound like something I would certainly learn something from, because I actually have never heard of that office that you were talking about. So what is your take on why people like the whodunit so much?
Well, I love mysteries, but I also have sort of the view that every good book is a mystery, because if you're not asking questions about who these characters are and what they're doing there and where they're going and you know what their motivation is, you know, I'm not terribly interested. I shouldn't admit that, you know, some you know, literature kind of puts me to sleep right away, but I love a mystery, and all good books are mysteries. In my opinion, you know, a lot of romance books are really mysteries as well. They combine them. I love the idea of justice, because this is a world where we don't necessarily see justice in our lives during our lifetime, but hopefully there be justice. But we can certainly, you know, wield that avenging sword when we write mysteries, and I love that. And one other reason I think that I love mysteries so much is that I think that no other books, like some romance, but nothing really is as descriptive and, you know, deep and rich as a mystery. It just brings you to a place and, you know, brings you to characters. And I think well-written mysteries are so good. I love to read a mystery set if I'm going to go travel, I want to read a mystery set there, because I will learn so much more about the town. For instance, Newport. I just read one of the Newport Mansion mysteries after visiting, and it just makes it a better experience for me when I'm traveling to go, oh, you know, that's where the Space Needle is, or that's where the mansion is, or this is where, you know, somebody threw themselves off the church steeple. So I love them as travelogues, and I shouldn't say that, but you know,
Oh,
LA.
no, it's apt, because I mean, like you set yours in DC and other places at Western North Carolina, and it is a travelogue in many respects, or the cozies that are set in a bakery or in Charleston, and they give you a place to go. So now that brings me to mysteries that are longstanding mysteries, you know, the whodunits on television or movies or whatever. Nicole, have you got a favorite sleuth from TV or movies or books that you like?
I do. So from books, my favorite is, of course, Sue Grafton's Kinsey. That's the one that was really influential on me as both a reader and a writer growing up. Those are the A for the alphabet books, A for alibi, B for burglary. And so she was the first time I'd read a female sleuth that was kind of like Kinsey, kind of independent, doing her own thing and unapologetic about eating her quarter pounder, right?
Yeah. Gotta love it.
But Robert B. Parker's Spencer series taught me how to write really great dialogue. And I mean, his dialogue is amazing. And talk about a travelogue. His Chronicles of Boston were just really, I was like, I need to go there, right? Just to see like all these places that Spencer hung out. And so those were two of my favorite in terms of books. In terms of like TV shows, I did love the Nero Wolfe TV show. I really love, and I'm going to forget his name now. His Archie, who's that? It's Thomas?
Nero Wolfe.
Archie Goodwin.
Oh, thank you. Archie Goodwin, but the actor is like Thomas.
Timothy Hutton.
Timothy Hutton, thank you. So Timothy Hutton's Archie was really great. So I really enjoyed watching that. But I want to go all the way back and let you guys know that when I really am down and I really just need to go somewhere fun, I always go to Midsummer. So, Midsummer Murders.
So good. So good.
It's my favorite. I mean, I've watched all 21 seasons over repeatedly, just because I just need to.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a huge nerd in regards to that. So my favorite TV show, of course, is Midsummer. And the books are, those written by Robert B. Parker and Steve.
Yeah. Faith, what about you?
My all-time favorite TV show is NCIS, the original.
The original one, yeah.
The original, I like it best of all of them, and I've watched it for decades. Gosh, it's been.
Isn't that sad? I know I have too, and it's like.
And I just adore it. I think it's so much fun, and it's not the kind of thing that is particularly sad or dark or intense. And you can just watch each one of them individually, or you can watch them all in a, and binge the whole thing, if you have that many years left in your life, because there's so many. But
yes.
I think that's my favorite long-term TV mystery show. And then originally, when I was first writing, I loved Trevanian because and I may not be saying his name right, but he placed his thrillers all over the world, and I felt like I got to travel and meet different people, different characters, different lifestyles from my little hometown Carolina girl type place. And I liked Le Carré, and I thought that he was the way that he laid out his mysteries, the sort of orderliness of it, taught how to transition from point A to point B to point C, and to make it linear enough so that even at the end, when there were 6 possible bad guys, you could eventually work your way back and say, oh yeah, okay, that person really could have done it. I mean, it makes sense all the way through. So could all of the others. And I think that I learned probably more from him than anybody else. And then about the business, so many wonderful women I met at Malice Domestic who would talk about what was going on in the business and how to be smart about writing mysteries and how to fashion a character that was unique and yet fell into that more traditional sleuth type aspect. So I've been around time, sorry.
No. I remember reading Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and getting to the last page and going, oh my gosh, and literally turning around, opening the first page again with the knowledge that I had from the end, and reading all the way through again going, there was the crumb, and there was that. And
most importantly, here's how he fooled me. And
yes.
Look.
Yes.
That was a great lesson.
Yeah. To see the way the sort of slight twist that made you think, oh, well, they're innocent. Of course they are,
Yes.
Alexia, what about you?
I was so excited to hear Nicole mention Rex Stouts and Nero Wolfe, because that's probably one of my top 3 favorite long-running series is the Nero Wolfe series by Rex Stout. Also Nancy Drew. And
can't forget our girl.
Can't forget Nancy Drew. She was my entry into the world of crime fiction when I was a kid. And
a gateway drug. It was a gateway drug.
Yes, she was my gateway drug. And Agatha Christie was the other one I grew up on. And all of those, in addition to having good puzzles, they also showed me how to create characters that people actually wanted to stick with for a couple hundred pages. Because if, who wants to spend time with somebody you just can't stand? I mean, or work that you're indifferent to. Sometimes somebody you hate, you actually you kind of hate read. But if you're bored, you're gonna put the book away. So you can't, don't be boring. See, TV wise, I mean, honestly, I maintain an Acorn and a BritBox subscription just so I can get British mysteries. So
yes.
Midsummer Murders, of course. And actually Mom and I used to watch every weeknight and weekend night, things like, Jessica Fletcher of Murder, She Wrote, all the cop shows on TV. I also like the BBC versions of Marple and Poirot. I watch those on repeat a lot. More recent ones, I guess, would be Hinterland, which is a Welsh one where they kind of left me hanging after season 3, and I'm furious.
Okay, so there is no season 4.
I know.
Because I was like, I need more of this. So okay.
Don't leave me hanging now. And Brokenwood Mysteries, there are more seasons of that, so they've at least.
Oh my God, we just started the new season. So Alexia, you're like my girl, right? Because that's
having some watch parties.
We need to have some watch parties for sure.
Somebody recommended Luther to me, and I'm like, if I get started on that, I can't get started on that until I get done with the book I'm working on. Then I'll do that.
Luther is really good. That's a real. It's gritty, and it's darker, but it's really good.
Yeah. Ellen, what about you? Who are your favorites?
Oh, okay. Amelia Peabody is mine. From the late, I want to say Barbara Peters, and that's wrong. I know Elizabeth Peters, who I met several times at Malice. It was just hilarious. But I just adore the Amelia Peabodys. I know that she never wanted them filmed. Right. I think sort of like Kinsey Milhone, Sue Grafton did not want her series done, but I would love to see Amelia Peabody's done because I've read all of them multiple times. So I adore those. And I just think an American is the only person who could make them as funny as they are, being, set as British characters. And I just have always howled, are we all the most eminent archaeologists in the world? It's just hilarious to me. So I love those. They're not available. I loved all the Mike Hammers, and Darren McGavin played him in the early days. I think I've seen those, and I loved him. And I love the Mike Hammer. The minute you hear Harlem Nocturne, it's like bam, and I love Harlem Nocturne, and we'll play it often when I'm writing. But I also love Darren McGavin in The Night Stalker, which is sort of crazy night stalking stories. It's also detective, it's also newspaper, so it really puts together a lot of my love. So I love that. I like the old Sam Spade movies, actually, but the Philip, oh God, I'm losing it. Goodnight, My Lovely, and which actually was a very bad movie, but I love the book, and I love the Chandler books. And I love the 40s, noir versions of those books, even though the movies may make no sense at all. Because Chandler always said, well, when you don't know what to do, just send someone through the door shooting. And not the best writing advice, but it will keep you on the edge of your seats.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of if it's not working, blow something up. So
hey, yeah, something. I mean, don't know what to do. Who's going to die? So I do love that. I was never really Agatha Christie, but we never had any books in my house that were, normal. So I never had Nancy Drew. I had to borrow them from my friends. My dad said, why am I going to buy you one when you can read it in 2 hours? Well, and I can read it again tomorrow and the next day, but he would not, they would not buy me books. So that was, so I didn't get into Agatha Christie, but, I went to college and I bought all the Mike Hammers, and it was sort of like, instead of having drink, I would just read a Mike Hammer. So that was my relaxation. So I love traditional mysteries. I love comic mysteries. So I guess that's where I love them, set in different places I've never been.
Yeah. Mark, what about you? Who are your favorites?
I like anything that Michael Connelly writes. I also feel like the Boss series is translated very well over to television as well. And then for comedy, which I also like, I like David Rosenfeld. If you're familiar with him, who writes the Andy Carpenter series, The Cowardly Lawyer from Paterson, New Jersey. Those are just laugh out loud. And then if we skip to an author across the sea, I really like Anthony Horowitz. Not only his books, but he did the whole Foyle's War thing, and that's good. Television, I'm going to go back into the ancient times with the iconic detective Columbo, who always had one more.
Of the rumpled raincoat.
Yes, that's right. And I can think he had a Porsche or something that was barely on its last legs, an old Porsche. So he was quite good. And I really also subscribed to BritBox and Acorn. And my editor on the last book said, "You're starting to write with a British accent. You need to cut back on your British shows." So if you're familiar with one of the ones that I've recently gone through the whole series is New Tricks. If you're familiar with that, it's about 3 retired detectives who get brought back in to work on cold cases because they're cheap and aren't in the union. And I related to the old person part of this thing, and they're quite funny as well.
That's great. And now I'm busily scribbling over here, so now I have all these things that I have to look at on BritBox. And
I mean, New Tricks was really clever too. The way that, I mean, they really addressed issues that don't often get addressed in mysteries. So that was a really great series.
I think we're seeing more of that, don't you?
I mean, I just released a thriller yesterday. Well, I didn't release it, but I had written a thriller and Bobby Lash's Abraham Snow series in his Snowverse. And it is a mother of Abraham Snow, the protagonist, it's his mother, his mom. She's like 58, 60, and she's living in Taos, and she picks up a stalker. And so it's a thrilling kind of cat and mouse. It's my first non speculative mystery. It's just a straight thriller. And so, yeah, I definitely think there's there's definitely a need for more mature protagonists versus, I'm 20 something or I'm 30 something and cute and running around my village. There's there's space for that too, but there tends to be more of a need for, Miss Marple type of cozies or protagonists that aren't in their 20s.
I think we're revolving back around to seeing all ages, all genders, all orientations. We're seeing more of that. And I think that's because there's a great demand for it and people are really appreciating it. We've named a lot here that are just really fabulous. If there was a series that you could write, Nicole, you kind of played right into my hands. If there was a series that someone else had written or characters that they'd created, is there one that you would love to play in that world? What about you, Faith? Is there anybody's world you'd like to play in? Would you like to write an episode of NCIS? Would you?
I would be terrified, but I think it would be the most fun in the world to jump in and contribute to that. But I'll be honest, I've tried screenplay writing and I don't have the ability to be that sparse with my words. I'm a little too wordy for a 1-hour TV show. And my plots tend to be way too twisted to wrap up in just a few minutes. So I would have a hard time jumping into anything on TV, but I really enjoy watching the Aurora Teagarden series.
Yes.
It's fun.
Yes.
It's lighthearted. Yes. It's easy. You can curl up with a cup of tea and pull a blanket over you and just binge 2 or 3 of them. And I would have fun jumping in and doing something like that. I mean, I wouldn't backstory. I'd have to, of course, do a lot of work to make sure I had all of that going. But it's just a fun thing. And I would enjoy doing that. And as far as print is concerned, I would have a really hard time, I think, writing with the exact same voice of the big names, and ghostwriting for something like that or would be really hard for me to do. But now I could jump in and do a collab. That would be fun. You do a collaboration with someone and that I would enjoy that a lot. But
is there an author that has passed beyond the veil that you'd like to write in their world?
Not really. I have a weird relationship with death. I sort of just want to
Okay.
set that becomes something that's enshrined. And so I would have a hard time with that. And yet at the same time, I can think of a number of people whose worlds are meaningful and would be fun to write in. But no, I think that voice is so terribly important in mystery series that I've always been very cautious about writing in someone else's world. I've tried it once or twice and haven't felt like I've done a really good job. So probably not.
Mark, what about you? Whose world would you like to jump into and play?
Well, I have enough trouble being in my own world. I have to get out of that first. But in some of it that you remember fondly, you look back at and you pick them up today and you realize they are dated. You know, someone who's gone to the great beyond that I thought did a nice body of work was John D. MacDonald, Travis McGee. But he would be kind of a sexist beach boy now by, our standards. And same thing with Mike Hammer, never met a gun he didn't like, those kind of things. But I guess Robert B. Parker, because you said dialogue, and I think, and also it's pithy. I mean, it's right to the point. He doesn't waste any words. The other guy that's got the dialogue badge of honor is Elmore Leonard. Yes. I think if I could, he's got that sort of dark humor as well as, and he deals with issues as well too. So he's someone that I should have mentioned earlier. Those two guys, I think, would be somebody that I would aspire to be more like, knowing that I would not be in their voice, as Faith so accurately pointed out. I'd have to make sure I kept true to my own voice, whatever that may be.
Yeah. Alexia, what about you? Is there anybody's world you'd like to play in?
Yeah, I kind of agree that I wouldn't want to try and write anybody else's characters or voice, but I actually wouldn't mind being a character on the series Rosemary and Thyme. That's about two mature women. One is a professor of horticulture, and the other is the recently divorced former police officer, who they go into the horticulture business together and manage to dig up bodies as well as plants. And I just think the combination of the real horror. I mean, you truly learn something about plants, but then it's kind of like you hate to say dead bodies are fun, but fun British history aspect kind of layered on top of that. Book-wise, M.R. James writes, who's the master of ghost stories. I'd love to write some more. I mean, I have a ghost in my series, but I'd love to write some more eerie ghost story, like it's a little more heavy on the gothic ghost combined with the mystery. So I guess more influenced by people than actually try and be them. But I think it'd be kind of cool to be one of the characters who survives in Rosemary and Thyme.
I had to laugh because you're talking to the lady who teaches a class on body disposal for writers. So digging up bodies, yay, let's go. But Rosemary and Thyme, I'll have to look that one up. That sounds great. I've always wanted to do a ride along with Rizzoli and Isles. I don't know that I would ever want to try to write Tess Garrett in Tess Gerritsen's world, but I'd love to do a ride along. Ellen, what about you?
Well, I guess, like the others, I don't want to necessarily write other people's books or actually their specific world, but at the moment I am just obsessed, after the book I'm writing, of course, with 1930s post-prohibition New York. And I would sort of like, I have characters in mind, a male-female detecting team, sort of a thin man, kind of Nick and Nora, but before they get married, so she's a playwright, he's a playboy millionaire, and I say drama will happen. So I love the world of the theater, and actually I am a playwright as well. So I have been having so much fun. I wake up in the middle of the night and write scenes from that. So I would love to, the glamour, the gowns, I want all those clothes. I want to be a few pounds thinner to wear those clothes, but it's just the glamour. And I think perhaps the recent unpleasantness and our quarantining in our homes has made me want glamour and to go out and to have parties and to have people. And not necessarily dead bodies, but if they fell,
they do turn up sometimes.
They do turn up. And we would just simply have to go investigate. So not necessarily someone else's, because I feel like, they are who they are and they're so special. I wouldn't want to trample any of theirs, but taking inspiration from, Nick and Nora, and was it Tommy and the Agatha Christie couple?
Yeah, the two.
Tommy and Tuppence.
Tommy and Tuppence. I mean, just,
Tuppence,
the male-female interaction and chemistry that I have hitherto not necessarily used, but I kind of like the idea of a male-female team, butting heads, solving crimes, that kind of thing.
I think it was TBS reran all the Nick and Noras recently.
Yes.
Watching them one right after the other is a study in how the characters grew. And some sort of cardboard cutouts that moved through the scenes to actually being more three-dimensional characters by the last one. But by the last one, you're like, okay, we're done with this, really.
But the interesting thing to me about the Nick and Nora movies is that it was a male-female screenwriting team that wrote them, and I think that's why they work.
Probably why they were so successful.
Because you had the woman writing all of Nora's wisecracks. Yeah. And getting in there. I know she's not really solving those crimes early on, but I think that male-female yin yang really worked.
Yeah,
so
I think so too. Nicole, what about you?
So I have
do you want to jump into Sue Grafton's world?
I don't actually, because because she's an idol to me, like she's up on that pedestal. I can't. And so I read a lot of Lawrence Sanders, and I read a lot of Robert B. Parker. And both of those authors have passed, and there have been other authors who've picked up the McNally series, or been other authors who've picked up the Spencer series. And I throw those books. I've actually bought them, tried to read them, and set them on fire outside. I have, because I'm like, really, this is not. Did you read any of the previous books? And so I don't.
That is really, really frustrating when it's like.
I don't like the idea, because McNally was really fun. And then they just really mess up the characters. Now he has a sister, he's an only child. What are you doing? And so there's so many things that, so many examples of that, where an author will come in and try their best to pick up that voice, as Faith mentioned earlier, and try to replicate, or not replicate, and just go completely counter. And I'm like, this isn't Spencer. That's not how he talks to Hawk. This is not how he does Susan. What the heck is going on? And so I would never be comfortable with trying to step in. Right. But however, I because I wrote for Serial Box, the second season of the Vela. There were already a writers group that did the first season of the Vela. So me and the new writers had to pick up those characters and write them, right? And extend that narrative. So I have played in a lot of people's playgrounds, in the sense that, like with Bobby Nash's Snowverse, I picked a character. I picked the character that had only been mentioned once, so that I could have more liberty to flesh her out, to be creative. Not a character that had appeared 2 or 3 times in some of the other works. No. I picked one that was his mom. She's only been mentioned once or twice, and no one's ever seen her in a text. So it gave me a lot of opportunity, even though I'm playing in his universe. That character is completely new. That's kind of where I live, because I don't want to go in and try to write. And he was like, you can't write Abraham, because I write Abraham, but you can play with all these other characters. And I just didn't want to try that, because I'm like, someone's going to take it outside and be like, what is Nicole doing with this character? And they're going to be burning it, right? Like I was. So
fire pit.
While I admire Nero, I did write a 1940s thriller for Moonstone Books. And I did base the characters off of Nero Wolfe in them, in the sense that she's an oracle. And so she is Pytha. She's an oracle, but that she has like a guy who goes out, who's her Archie, who does all the legwork, right? Because she's the all-knowing oracle, and she stays in her Chicago penthouse over on the Gold Coast.
Nice.
And so that's called Summer of Dread, and it's coming out from Moonstone Books. But that one is so when I write, so I did take some influence from Rex Stout, right? But I don't think I could actually ever replicate what he's done or try to imitate that voice. I just might, like most of the people, the panelists said, you just take inspiration from those authors.
And I guess that's more what I was getting at, because like you said, Mark, I think a lot of times you go back and read some of those favorites that maybe you started with. Like, I was a huge Robert Ludlum fan. I got them all from the library and read them and loved them. And I went back not too terribly long ago when I guess the last Bourne movie had come out in 2015 or something like that. And I thought, I should go back and read this. No, just don't. They're so dated. And his voice doesn't lend itself to modern writing, but I guess what had prompted my question was, that was a world that I wouldn't mind taking some inspiration from and playing in.
Right.
And so I agree with all of you that it's really challenging to think about trying to, as Nicole said, trying to write a character forward in some of these series, especially when people are not respecting the series as written. And, but, there are some that I would love to just play in that world. As Nicole said, take another character in that setting or in that world and play with. Is there any that, rephrasing that way, are there any others that you'd like to pick up? Anybody that you would go play with?
I would actually go play with Archie Goodwin. And then someone did actually try it. Another author has taken over that series, and it's quite polarizing. And I'm firmly on Nicole's side about, I wouldn't quite burn a book, but I would definitely throw it. But
let it hit the wall.
Yeah.
I was really angry, and I was a lot younger. I'm better now, but.
But when I was a kid reading the Nero Wolf books, I mean, to this day, I still hate Lily What's-Her-Face. I would pretend that I was Archie Goodwin's girlfriend in the book. So.
Oh, nice. I love me some Archie now. I do. I love me some Archie.
Well, I always wanted, that was one of the things in the Spencer for Hire books. I always wanted to know more about Hawk.
Yeah.
And they don't tell you very much. And I'm like, who is he? I want to know who he is. What does he do on the weekends? Can I have his number?
Right. And some of those books, I went back and read like the Godwolf manuscript, and some of them are very dated. Some of those slang is very dated. I'm like, oh, we're still using jive? Okay. Right, because they're definitely reflections of the time where Robert B. Parker was writing them. But he does have like a YA series called Young Spencer that was actually really good too, for younger readers, kind of getting in to, and it like gives you a kind of a look-see into Spencer as a child when his uncles and his father were alive. And you hear about them, but kind of you don't know a lot about them. And so the Young Spencer books, and unfortunately he only had written like 3 or 4 of them before he passed. But it gave a good insight into Spencer, the adult later. That was cool.
Yeah. I liked that when they did that with the Young Indiana series, with trying to see a little bit of Indiana Jones before he became Indiana Jones. If you had to recommend someone wants to start branching into the mystery genre, and you've already recommended your books, but you were going to recommend all the panelists and then someone else, who would you recommend, Ellen?
Oh man, that's, it's so hard. I mean, there are problems with everybody I like. I would definitely recommend, the female heroines, Amelia Peabody. I do love that. There is a writer who wrote 2 mysteries, and I have read them until the pages are falling out of my books, and her name is Diane K. Shaw, and they're set in right at the cusp of 1949, 1950 LA, and her character's name is Parrish Chandler. If you can get them, one is As Crime Goes By, and
great title.
Yeah, and I know that that's probably one of those titles that's been used again, but I believe that's the first one, and they're so evocative of LA during that time. And she's a society reporter who's solving crimes, and she's actually just a leg man for the gossip columnist. But her the author, has set up the books so you want a third book, a trio, and it's not there. But I would really recommend reading that, because I know it kills me. I was like, no, where's the third book? I know there's a manuscript out there. So I like that. I'm trying to think. I mean, you have a question like that, and it's like, kaboom! What do I love?
Well, let's move to somebody else, and then you can jump back in. Faith, what about you?
You can't ask me that.
See, it's too difficult.
Where would I? No, that's problematic. And then there's this, no, not for today. And oh, well, that won't do for kids. And I'm drawing a complete blank. And you're going to have to skip.
All right. I will skip you. Mark, what about you?
Well, again, it comes down to the kind of, mystery is such a wide category, what your strengths are. From a literary standpoint, I really like P.D. James's work as far as being able to create setting and also plot. And Adam Dalgliesh is a really fully rounded character. California writer Robert Cray, Elvis Costello series, whatever, if you want, looking for. And I think so much of it is, who do you read for dialogue? Who do you read for description? Who do you read for plotting? And I think that should be my exercise, is to put those kinds of things down and then go find the example, that illustrates that the best.
Yeah. Alexia, what about you?
For me, I would have to find out kind of what else they liked, because I think of different authors depending on your style, as Mark was alluding to. So if someone who wanted to read cozies, I'd recommend Valerie Burns, VM Burns, she writes as. She actually has like 3 different cozy series. I don't know how she does that. If someone wanted a thriller, Kate Holohan writes thrillers with strong female protagonists. So if you want a thriller where the woman's not in the too stupid to live category, that's
I always want my books in that category.
Yeah. Sometimes you wonder, it's like, how do you cross the street, let alone get away from a serial killer? But that's another story. If you kind of want just like a contemporary mystery, Paula Munier writes a contemporary mystery that actually the features the rescue dogs, like as in search and rescue dog features prominently. If you kind of want something atmospheric, S.A. Cosby, he wrote Blacktop Wasteland, the book everybody's talking about, but it's that very Southern Gothic atmospheric. For historical writers, James Ziskin, if you kind of want like the 60s Italy spin. Gabriel Valjean, if you're into the 70s. Katrina McPherson, if you like the classic 1930s. And if you like Agatha Christie, you might like Katrina McPherson. So again, I'd have to find out like what else they liked, and then I could kind of steer them towards somebody else. Like the Amazon. If you like this, you might also like.
Yeah, exactly. Nicole, what about you? Oh, I'm sorry, Ellen, did you have one you remember?
I was just going to throw out Janet Ivanovich. I would say the first 5.
And if you want to laugh out loud.
If you really, they're so funny. I think the first one is brilliant. And I think like up through about the first 5, they're really good. And then, then she falls into that category of, good God, have you not learned anything? But so funny. In Trenton, New Jersey, she's a Bond agent. And really, really funny stuff. But then I think that, some of us have trouble with.
I would say the first 5 are great.
Yeah. And then after that, I think that, she's not learning anything. She can't choose between Ranger and Joe. And, I just got too frustrated with that. Okay.
I do have someone.
Yay.
Charles Todd.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
And I forget, and I'm going to mess up, but it's post World War I think, set in the UK, and they are brilliant from the beginning to the end. They are stunning, and the voice is true to the time, and so it still resonates even today. And it's I think all of them are absolutely fantastic.
Great. Nicole?
So I was going to say Walter Mosley, only because Walter Mosley like navigates. Well, his he navigates through all these different genres, but they're all fantastic mysteries too. So I like his work. I already mentioned Robert B. Parker in terms of dialogue, right? I definitely think that if you want to, it kind of depends, like Alexia said, on what your tastes run to. But if you're like me and you like writing across genres, you like mashing things up, or you just want to write a straight mystery, Walter Mosley is really great. R.B. Parker is really great. Sue Grafton is great in terms of like the mystery and the plotting. And so it's not fast plotting, but it's very methodical plotting. And so you get a lot of information, you learn a lot about her fictional town, but you learn a lot about what insurance agents do in terms of trying to figure out whether we should pay out this money or not to insurance investigators before Kinsey goes just straight PI. Those would be the vintage Lawrence Sanders, but in the wake of Me Too movement, some of it's a little, but you learn a lot about West Palm Beach and a lot about plotting too, and making characters that are memorable, because McNally's just a lot of fun. And voice, you learn a lot about voice because McNally's voice is very much unique. I've read the other Lawrence Sanders books as well, and they're very different from McNally. So you learn a lot about voice with Lawrence Sanders as well. Those would be my suggestions.
I still like Chandler for styling and writing metaphors. I know that, that the times passes by and there's some troublesome stuff with women and minorities in his books, but the writing itself is so good. It has been satirized forever. So, we satirized Chandler, we satirized Dashiell Hammett, but I think if you go back to the source, you see why they were so popular, that they were satirized, I guess.
Well, and sometimes you find somebody, I'm going to throw out Ellery Adams, no relation, because she's one of those mystery writers that she has 3 or 4 different series. And I think you said, Nicole, I don't know how she does it. She's like 3 or 4 different series, and they're all different voices. And there are 2 of her series that I have yet to figure out who done it before she reveals who did it. And a lot of the times I can figure that out, because we're writers and, we sort of see the pacing of it, but she gets me 90% of the time. She gets me on at least 2 of her series. I'm like, oh, really? Oh my gosh. And you were talking, Nicole, about learning things. Diane Kelly has a wonderful series where her character works, I think, for the IRS, and death taxes and a latte or something like that. And it's Diane Kelly. And I learned so much about the IRS. Not necessarily something you want to do. Well, we have come to the end of our time. And so I'm going to ask each of you to tell us where we can find you on the web, obviously here at ConTinual. But Nicole, what about you? Where can we find you, and where can people find your books?
So people can find my books on Amazon and most online vendors. You can also find some of them at Mocha Memoirs Press, which is my publishing house. You can also find me at NicoleGivensKurtz.net and at ConTinual. Excellent.
Faith, what about you?
You can find the Faith Hunter books almost anywhere. Audible, all of the ebook distributors, wherever sold. Gwen Hunter books are a lot harder to find. You might be able to find them online in ebook form. Might be available in reprint trade paperback. And then I'm available in person several times a day on Facebook. You can do a search for Faith Hunter Author, and I have several fan pages there. So I'm there, and I'm also at faithhunter.net.
Mark, what about you?
I'm at markdecastrique.com, where nobody else is, but it's one good thing about having an unusual name. And also on Facebook and Twitter. And you can find my books anywhere as well. All of them are in ebook, and most of them are in audio and print.
Excellent. Ellen?
Okay, I am at ellenbyerrum.com. It's my website. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram occasionally. I refuse to do TikTok because I just can't do anymore. And I can't even do what I should do. My books are available, obviously, online, ebooks, and they can be ordered from any bookstore. So I guess that's it. I'd also like to mention that I did put out a children's mystery this year. It's sort of a children's picture book. It's called Sherlocktopus Holmes, 8 Arms of the Law. And it introduces basic mystery terms to kids. So it's all rhymed and metered, and all of the definitions in it are rhymed and metered, and that is in hardback and paperback. So
how cool.
Thank you.
Alexia, what about you?
So yeah, this is Gethsemane Browns in Kindle Unlimited. And you can look at the paper copies of the book at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, bookshop.org. Support your indie bookstores. You can also find me on the web at alexiagordon.net, Facebook at alexiagordon.writer, Instagram, Alexia Gordon Author. I also have a podcast if you want recommendations for more mystery writers. I interview cozy and traditional authors. So the Cozy Corner with Alexia Gordon. If you want to listen in, and if you are looking for some new authors to check out, I have a different author on every other week, so that's a resource for folks.
Excellent, excellent. And of course, you can find us all here on Continual. Thank you so much for being with us in the panel room. Thank you to all of our panelists, and have a great day.